So welcome to TN Football. My name is Paul and I'm joined again by Colin. Welcome, Colin. Thank you for joining me for some Club World Cup talk.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
I feel like having an inside man bringing someone from the US to do the talking. It's like cheating, isn't it? So we're not going to go through all the games and discuss every single score because there's been 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There's been 13 games so far in the Club World Cup. So the Manchester City against Wydad game has just finished with a 2-0 victory. With Real Madrid, Al Hilal kicking off soon, but my bets for the evening are already ruined because I bet on Man City to concede a goal. So, I didn't have faith, Colin. They've not looked that good in the Premier League, so I thought they were going to concede a goal.
Yeah, I got to tell you, you may have been reaching a touch there with what you were going for.
Yeah, I'm starting to think the same thing, to be honest with you. So first off, I did just mention it before we went live, I said Auckland City playing Australia. It's actually Auckland FC playing Australia, and Auckland City still playing the New Zealand League, and they are the Oceania Champions League winners. That's why they are here. I will say maybe Auckland FC might have done a better job, as soon as they conceded 10 to Bayern Munich, Colin.
Yeah, so bad look, right? So FIFA just spent the last how many months billing this as the best of the clubs in the world coming to play. Now, and we talked the last time, right? I don't think even we didn't think that this was going to be by any stretch of the imagination a close game, but that's just a terrible look. Your first game's a 0-0 draw that was just boring as sin, and your second game is an absolute floor wiping that just doesn't seem doesn't reinforce the message. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, not to take anything away, right? Auckland City is six, seven consecutive times they've won it, the Oceania Champions League, but maybe a revisit here is, do they I get it, but that's a bad look. And given how some of the other games have gone, right? So my worry, and this will get us into a little bit of my general concern with what I think you're about to see in the second games in the groups in this, is that the other game in that group was Benfica and Boca Juniors, who I thought Boca was, they came out, knocked 2 past early. I thought they were going to walk that game, fell asleep, and ended up drawing the game. But right now, the problem that you have is both sides. You've got 3 points on Bayern. Benfica and Boca are on 1 point. Auckland's on 0. There's a real good shot both of them are going to lose to Bayern. So the name of this game now becomes goal differential, right? Which means Benfica and Boca are incentivized to shut up shop and try and play for a 0-0 with Bayern. And then they're incentivized to go out there and try and put 1,000 past Auckland City, which doesn't make for great, doesn't make for great viewing anywhere around the world. And my fear is that you're about to get this in multiple groups across it. The odds-on 4th place team is about to just get absolutely shellacked.
I mean, one thing I noticed watching the game, I think I messaged you about it, I think it was the 9th goal, but there was numerous times during the game. Auckland City decided what they would do is do what all modern teams do these days. And no matter who you are, you can be Auckland City playing Bayern Munich, and you will still play out from defence when you are getting pressed by about 7 Bayern Munich players. Whose idea was it to say, do you know what, every time we get it, let's just play out. Let's just play out. What happened to sticking a big man up top, an Akin Fenway, a Peter Crouch, somebody up top, and just going long and going, do you know what, we can't play football against these guys, so we'll stick the hardest people we can find in defence and stick the biggest people we can find up front and just play route 1. We might still lose 5 or 6, but we're not taking any chances at the back. Because playing out, it was just stupid, Colin, in my opinion.
I mean, that was probably they absolutely got decimated because of it. But if I remember correctly, I think it was the Fluminense Dortmund game because I was chiming back, as we were chatting, I chimed back when I was watching the Fluminense game. Same thing. There's 6 guys on Fluminense's side swarming the box, and Borussia Dortmund's keeper slides it out into a guy who's got 3 dudes around him, and the next thing you know, like, how the hell Fluminense didn't score the chances? Like, I mean, they should have walked out of that game pummeling Dortmund. But yeah, to your point, this rigid adherence to we're going to play this like whatever stylistic, Guardiola-esque building up, passing a million times. It's like, look, some days you got to look in the mirror and realize you're not Barca circa 2008.
It's right.
You just don't have the talent. To your point, get it up to a forward. Get it out somewhere. Give yourself a 50. Like, to me, the thing that stands out, right, is if your keeper pushes the ball up forward, right, for the most part, you've got a 50-50 chance that's about to happen between your guy and the defender that's on him. If I pass it out and there's 4 or 5 guys or 6 guys, because the more that they beat it out of you, the more they're going to, more guys are going to show up to press, right? One guy trying to beat, one guy one-on-one is going to be less than a 50% chance to get out of it. 1-on-2, 1-on-3, like the odds are just nowhere near your favor. Why at some point, like, self-preservation doesn't kick in and somebody goes, I'm just going to try anything else because this is just getting ugly.
I mean, it blows my mind, like you said there, the football and brain that managers and the coaching teams are actually putting out there to people. Because again, like, firstly, I'm in the middle of putting together a portfolio. Because as I spoke to you, Colin, off camera last time, I'm now a fully qualified scout. Don't want to brag. got the paperwork to prove it. So I'm putting together a portfolio on players' pros and cons. So many of them are reckless in terms of defensively minded when I'm scouting players around here for the portfolio. But a perfect example is, if I can work it out, these managers should be able to work it out. And from 2016-2019, 4 seasons in Norway, I was coaching in the 7th tier. Now, we came up against a team called Undheim, a village close to here. And they had a tall striker and a playmaker in midfield. He was really good on the ball, to the point where you basically tried to mark him out of the game. But the striker was tall, quick, and skillful. So you didn't mess around with him. Now, my goalkeeper couldn't kick it long. He just didn't have the kick on him. He was a great goalkeeper, but just didn't have a kick on him. So we always played it out to our right back or our left back, who both were really good at crossing and getting it long. So quite a lot of time we did play out. We went into to the right back or left back. Then we played defensive mid, back to the left back to draw them out, then up the wing. When you come up against this team like Undheim, you don't do that. Instead, my right back or left back would go next to the keeper. He'd literally tap it a metre. Then I'd have my left winger or right winger dropping a little bit deeper for that ball. Or my striker dropping deep to win the header. But they did have a big man in defence. So if he picked up my striker, we know to go out wide. If he didn't pick up my striker, we know to go into the striker. How can a team and a manager down in the 7th tier of Norwegian football make tactical adjustments to completely stop them 1-2 in out defence before you go up the wing, then 1-2 in the defensive midfield before you go up to the wing? How am I stopping that? And these are so stubborn that they continue to try it. This is what I don't understand. It blows my mind that people still try it.
Ego. I think it's ego, right? You're sitting there saying, I know better. This is the way that you play football, and I'm not going to adapt. We're better. We'll make it work. And it's like, look, at the end of the day, like, at some point you wanted to grab the Auckland City guy and sit him down and say, like, look, dude, like, fair enough. you're not it. We're gonna go do something different because, like, to be fair, to your point, like by the time goal 3 went in relatively simply, and you realize that you couldn't play defense against these guys, at some point the little they tell you like the lizard brain ought to kick in and be like, hey, we are going to get absolutely mauled today. So the thing that we ought to probably try and do is just vault this thing, and if we get lucky, we break one off and wake them up a little bit so that they don't get nearly as aggressive. Instead, they kept trying to play this game that made no sense, and you could feel the pressure. Like it was weird to me. Like for a 10-0 game, you could feel Bayern just getting more and more aggressive. Like, I mean, the risk level they were taking, like, for Christ's sakes, the only guy who wasn't really actively pressing their defensive line was the goalkeeper. And I'm pretty sure one more went through and he'd have been up there too.
But to be fair, though,
he was just nuts.
The whole team could press because they were never going to go long to try to get out of it.
And they made it abundantly clear there was no reason that they gave them zero.
When have you ever
zero reason to do anything different?
Now, you're a New York Red Bulls fan. When have you ever watched a game and thought to yourself, do you know what, my best player is my centre-back. He's amazing on the ball. Oh, do you know what, my full-backs. Oh, I wish they were my wingers. I wish they were my playmaker in the middle. What's our obsession with giving, like, I saw a stat that in the Premier League, I think 4 out of the 5 or the top 5 players to have passes or touches in a game are all defenders now. And it's mind-boggling the way it's going.
It's what? What was the Barcelona treble with, Alves?
Yeah.
Messi, Busquets, that crowd. Xavi, like, what was it? 07, 08, somewhere in there. Like, everybody's got this magical thing of like, oh my God, it's so wonderful. You start passing it out, the ball just flows back and forth across the field, and you work your way up, and then magically, like, you just tap in this goal that comes out of nowhere. The problem is that like that team was a unique singular data point in the universe.
Yeah.
Nobody else got that. I mean, your point, the backs, the midfield, the playmaking, the forward movement was all unique. Nobody else has got that combination of stuff.
And like,
not these days at least.
Like to me, like the biggest aim we tried to do is my left winger was unbelievable, cutting inside, such a skillful player for that level. So the whole purpose of moving the ball would be to free up space for him. So you'd go along the back line to your left back, they would move along, then you'd switch it to your right back to bring them along the other way. Then you'd go into the central defence just to draw them further out as well as moving along. Then you'd look at the switch to the left winger, for example. You'd do something to move the opposition across the pitch before you then attack the other side. I'm not seeing that. I'm just seeing we're going to pass the ball because we've been told to pass the ball. Yeah. Like Barcelona, they mastered how to hold onto the ball, and then when they needed to, Messi countered, they scored. But these teams, like, we could go on all night. This could be a whole different pod. A couple of games I wanted to mention. You were very, very on point with the Brazilian sides, the Mexican sides, the South American sides. Monterrey Inter. I thought Monterrey were fantastic. Ramos looks. I mean, how old's Ramos? 21, 22? Looks about that. I mean, he's new. Can I sign him for Newcastle?
Hey, to be fair, Mexico is the league that plays entirely to his strengths. You do not pick up a lot of red cards for the way he plays in Liga MX, so it's suited for him. But he looked fantastic. They moved the ball well. I thought they ran into ragged.
Number 10 for them, that Canales. Is he the guy who used to play for Valencia or something? I'm not sure on his name now. I don't know if you can bring up Monterrey's squad and numbers. I recognise the name. I was wondering if he used to play for Valencia or Real. I think he might have played for Real Madrid as well at some point. Whilst you check that, I will mention that Chelsea beat LAFC. I mean, it looked like a training game, to be honest with you, that game. Palmeiras Porto finished 0-0. I don't quite know how. I watched 24 minutes of highlights on that game because of the time the game actually kicked off. 24 minutes. I didn't know what the score was going to be, so I spent the whole game waiting to see who was going to score.
It was. It was. I mean, just. Yeah, so he was in Spain. Valencia, he played a season at Madrid, Real, 5 at Real Sociedad, 5 at Betis, and he's 3 years back in Monterrey. Yeah.
Can we mention
was a hell of a game? But
that Porto Palmeiras, I think it's exactly. I think that one probably surprised you because you thought Palmeiras would turn Porto over, but at the same time, I think they should have.
They should have, yeah. No, I think they should have. They should have won that game. But I think if you haven't watched, you're not much into Copa Libertadores or anything going on in South America.
I'm not, and honestly, I should be better. And I don't know if it's just the time zone, or if you have a link for me after this pod to like some sort of a What I'm really enjoying is DAZN are putting out free highlights of the Club World Cup on YouTube. And it's fantastically edited. So if there's something like that for the Copa Libertadores, please send it my way.
I'll have to take a look because I know I think B in Sport used to cover it. That's how that's how I watch it. I'll take a look. I'll send you. But it's a great tournament.
I've noticed as well. I'm not sure about you, Colin. I know stadiums you want to mention. Mexican teams and Argentine, Brazilian teams. You see a big difference in crowds when they're on the pitch. You see a big difference when they're on the pitch. I mean, the Boca game when they scored. Now, I never saw and zoomed out of the whole stadium, so I might be wrong, but there was a lot of Boca fans there.
Well, to be fair, there was whoever set up the scheduling was not stupid and put Monterrey playing in California with a pre-built, heavily favored audience. I mean, it's the same problem the U.S. national team plays is when you play, California, Texas, Arizona, when they play with Mexico, it's not a home game. But they Florida, Boca in Florida is another, large Latin population down there, 55,000.
Yeah.
My biggest beef with this is as a great example of it, it was yesterday's game between the Sundowns and Ulsan Hyundai in
1-0 to the Sundowns. The Sundowns had 2 goals. 2 goals ruled out.
Yeah.
Is that all there was? 3,400?
3,400 people in there.
For a Club World Cup match.
What I don't understand, I mean, even if you think about it, right? So in LA, River Plate had 12,000 fans in it. There are soccer specific, we were talking a little bit before we went on. The one that just drove me up a wall, right, is MetLife Stadium for Fluminense and Borussia Dortmund. It's an American football stadium. It seats 80,000 people in that stadium. They had 34,000 people in it. The place looked half empty.
Right.
Half empty.
Let's discuss this as someone who doesn't know the naming of the stadium. So I could not point on a map where MetLife Stadium is. What city is that in?
New Jersey. So that's in New Jersey. So
they could have
15 minutes. I kid you not. 15 minutes south of that stadium is Red Bull Arena.
That's what I was about to say.
It's a 25,000 seat soccer specific stadium.
So they could just moved it.
Playing at the Rose Bowl. Yeah, Monterrey and Inter yesterday. It was a phenomenal game. There's 40,000 people sitting in it. The Rose Bowl seats 100,000 people. It's a huge college football stadium. Move down. You're in LA. Just go play either at LAFC. Was it BMO Park for LAFC, or go play at the Galaxy Stadium. They're both 25,000 seat stadiums.
I think they are so desperate to have that aerial view an hour before the game that the game is going to play at this massive stadium, they don't seem to understand the embarrassment of the aerial view when the game kicks off and there's no one there.
Well, the thing that scares me, right, is that all of these stadiums that they're playing at are all stadiums on the World Cup list next year.
Oh, this is my worry.
You're gonna see like the thing that I think the Club World Cup is telling me that you're gonna see at the World Cup next year is, one, you're gonna see a bunch of half-empty stadiums, because now that this thing's expanded, like, no offense, but who the hell wants to watch France play Guam? Right, nobody's going to go spend the price tags that they said. What I was looking at, because I was getting ads for it. The tickets for the Inter Miami game, the opening game, they cut them 2 days before. They were $4 a seat for that game.
That's
because
mad.
They were so desperate to not look stupid and get people in the door.
It looks more stupid doing $4 a game. A ticket, sorry.
Yeah, of course. So the thing that freaks me out is that you're going to you're going to go showcase a World Cup. I think the stadiums in Mexico are going to absolutely show out, and they're using the MLS stadiums in Canada, I believe, the last time I looked.
Okay.
So I think they're going to look fine. But you're going to end up with all of these. Who the hell wants to go? Are you really going to tell me, even for a World Cup, are you going to put 80,000 people into the stadium in New Jersey to go watch
Tunisia versus Japan? Yeah.
No. There's just no possible way.
But the worst thing is, if you work your head around all the other countries, like let's say the World Cup happened in England, there's not that many stadiums over 40,000. So you're going to have 4 or 5 stadiums which are probably around 30,000. So what's the harm in, like you said, 25,000 LA, 25,000 New York Red Bulls? Like, in my opinion, you would rather say we sold out every single game than turn around and go, well, actually, this is embarrassing. Like, you'd rather sell out. They're just being greedy and praying that one of the games sells 100,000 because it covers a few of the other empty ones.
To me, right, for all of the flaws that MLS has, and again, we could spend hours on.
It's just the system. Most of the MLS is good. It's just the system.
It's got its ups and downs. But I think one of the best things that it's done is it's created an entire infrastructure where teams are building soccer-specific stadiums that are viable for those teams that aren't like, 500,000 person, Conference League North, League 2 level size. These are full-fledged 22 to 28,000 people soccer-specific stadiums. Why in God's name, if I'm sitting at US Soccer, if I'm sitting at MLS, do I not want to go and sit with FIFA and say, to your point, how awesome would this look if every one of these games in all of our stadiums are showing out to the rest of the world, but they're packed, they're jumping, people can see that there's an infrastructure here, that soccer's got a foothold, that that it's not a joke anymore. Going into a World Cup year. Instead, you've got half-empty stadiums all over the place, and and I get it, right? The Club World Cup has never been, even when it was in its prior incarnation, has never been oh my God, I want to go run over and go watch this thing. Most of the time, you forget that it's going on until Real Madrid or somebody shows up after a wonky December break and says, "Oh shoot, we won a trophy." But you have got some legit sides here that are bringing some actual real teams. I mean, some of the Monterrey didn't, and even Inter didn't load up a bunch of guys that fell out of the back of the turnip truck.
No,
that was an A team game there. And now it just looks so bad to me.
I know. The thing is, when you get all the empty stadiums, you think to yourself, this should have been held in England or in Germany or Italy. But then you think, well, hang on though, if they played them at the actual stadiums for the football clubs, they wouldn't be empty stadiums. Then it would look like a successful competition so far. I think.
I mean, even to your point, like you played in they played. Like the game in the Rose Bowl, right? They said between Monterey and Inter last night, did 40,000 people in that to come to that game. The problem is not that there wasn't 40,000 people that showed up. The problem is it's 40,000 people in a 100,000 person stadium. It looks stupid.
Yeah.
Put 40,000. Like I get that you weren't going to get. So do 25,000 and play them in. Play them at LAFC or LA Galaxy Stadium, and then do a watch party in downtown LA.
Yeah. That would have been awesome.
Show up. And it'll look, it looks good. The place will be jumping. Instead, you had a good crowd. I mean, like, it wasn't like nobody showed up to the game. It's just you put it in the wrong venue and it looks stupid.
I'd be interested, and your big football stadium is Atlanta. So again, that could be left for the final. Or semi-finals and final or something. Like they do in the FA Cup, the semi-finals and final at Wembley. Don't agree with that, but in this kind of situation, use the big stadium for the big game at the end.
But even Chelsea and LAFC played there yesterday.
Yeah.
Monday.
Yeah, but that was
22,000 people. That's a 70,000.
Yeah, it looks stupid. That made the news. That made the news. Another thing I wanted to discuss, which might possibly be the worst thing I've ever seen, and 1,000,000%, I'm sorry, Colin, it's the most American shit I've ever seen come on my TV, is introducing the players one by one and then walking out onto the pitch. That might be the worst thing, and I swear,
I have one that's going to beat that for you.
Well, let me just say that if this continues beyond this tournament, I might quit top-level football watching it. I just imagine the Premier League. And next out for Burnley, Ben Mee. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
So we only do that in, like, basketball and hockey, where there's, like, 5 or 6 guys aside.
Yeah, not 22. Whose ID was this, Colin? Do you know? Like, was it ever announced before the tournament?
Not that I'm aware.
Jeez, shocking.
The only thing that I've seen so far that annoys me, or that I find even dumber than that, is the Miller Ultra Superior Player of the Match. We're like, who felt the need to rename the Man of the Match award to the Superior Player of the Match?
Superior Player of the Match.
I'm like, you gotta be joking.
What were they watching to come up with that wording?
I have no earthly idea. But
when I hear superior, the first thing I ever think when I hear something like superior is gladiators. It's the first thing that comes to my mind when you say superior. I think gladiators.
Oh, it is.
There's
terrible.
Do you know what? I'm gonna backtrack and say.
Sure.
I've not been able to see many of the games live due to just the time zone and the fact that my wife hates football. But I'm going to jump in. I'm going to jump in and get the second half of the Real Madrid game against Al Hilal. Like I say, my bets are done for the night anyway. Colin, devastated. But I've not minded it so far, and you came into this as someone who's looking forward to watching it. I came in as a skeptic, but I came in as somebody who wanted to give it a chance. I think we are seeing many flaws, and I hope they backtrack on the idea of the World Cup being at these other stadiums, like you said. But so far, I think the Brazilian teams have really impressed me. Who else was it? Monterrey really impressed me. I'm going to shock you. Auckland City didn't. And Seattle Sounders, I don't quite understand how they got out of that with the 2-1. They should almost be happy that it wasn't 3 or 4. And like I say, Porto Palmeiras, one of the best 0-0 games I've watched highlights of like by a long way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's your take been so far?
So for all for all the things I want to gripe about, the product on the field's been pretty darn good. I mean, Sans, I mean, I think the first two games were. I got real nervous because I thought the first two games were sort of junk.
Yeah.
I didn't think I didn't think we talked about it, right? I didn't think MLS sides were going to particularly show up well. I thought Miami should have showed up better in the opening game.
Yeah, agreed.
They should have. I thought Mascherano's comments after it were soft. I mean, well, hey, this is tough. This is a different level, but like we showed up. It's like, dude, you got walked.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for your goalkeeper having, guessing correctly, like you got walked.
And they play Porto next. I mean, that's a must. Because they're not beating Palmeiras, I'll tell you right now. So, and all of the Palmeiras players are going to be more than happy to be kicking Messi during the game. So they're not going to stand back and go, oh, look, it's Messi. They're going to stand back and say, we're kicking this guy.
No, you're going to get, and so I think to your point, the Brazilian sides have shown up awesome. I think people if you're watching, has seen the difference that CONCACAF and CONMEBOL style play. MLS not so much, but I think that's more of an issue of the talent level not being on par. But like Monterrey's game with Inter last night, there were bodies flying everywhere. Every time you saw Inter try and casually wind their, deftly pass their way through the middle of it, some dude was sitting on his rear end staring up at the sky, figuring out how he got there. And a referee just says, play on. Like, it's a different game. I thought the level of physicality in the Palmeiras game was, Palmeiras is a technically wonderful side. They do it in such a way. I thought Fluminense was outstanding. Botafogo was top notch too.
So Monterrey play River Plate next.
That's going to be it.
What are we saying? What are we saying? Because I thought River Plate. I mean, they won 3-1. I didn't go away from that going, oh, they look really good. But do you class them as like a gritty, hard team who will just get the result?
They did the job they needed to get done. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think River Plate did the job that they needed to do. Right. It was a professional matchup. They're a good side. They've got some young guys on it. I think this is going to be a little bit of pressure in it. It's going to be a good game. I think on paper, I think River Plate are the better side. But as you saw yesterday, right, I think Monterrey can go with anybody on any given day. I think the question is the thing that's a little bit of an I've seen some players complaining about it. I think like weather and environment is going to be a bit of a deal, right? So they're playing again in California. It's a night game, but the chances are it's not going to be, it's not going to be like it's not like playing in, you're not playing in Phoenix at this time of year, but it's still going to be, it's still going to be a little warm, but both sides should be able to handle that. I think that's much watched TV. I mean, the next bunch of stuff that we have, Pachuca tonight this afternoon against Salzburg.
I went with Pachuca, and obviously failed bet now. I went with Pachuca to beat Salzburg there, because you told me they were good.
I think they will. I think they're going to give Salzburg a run. I mean, the money line's got Salzburg, which I don't quite understand, but I think that one's going to be a good one. I actually think PSG and Botafogo is going to be an interesting matchup. Tomorrow. I think Palmeiras should walk Al-Ahly. I think Porto's going to walk Inter. Flamengo Chelsea is going to be a really interesting game on Friday.
Yeah, the thing is, Chelsea have such a big squad. So it's the question now is, are they rotating or are they going for the 6 points? I'm just looking now, just after what you said there. Norwegian Norsk Tipping, which is Norwegian betting. Norwegian betting. We have a lot of betting sites. We have one. They have Pachuca at 2.6 and Red Bull at 2.5. So Red Bull favourites by like 0.1.
Yeah.
But they have Al Ain of UAE at 7 tonight against Juventus at 1.4. So I think they've guessed who's going to win that one. I mean,
yeah, I don't think that's a hard one.
I'm enjoying it, Colin. And honestly, I think if we come back on Sunday and do another chat, I think we're going to be talking about there's been some interesting games happened this week.
The product on the field, and if people haven't watched, I mean, watch the highlights. The product on the field has been, for the most part, pretty good. The games that we thought, I mean, the sides that you want to watch, European sides versus South American sides, and I think the Liga MX sides have so far have showed up.
Yeah, I mean, you're in the best position. You're in the best position to keep us up to date on feedback from media in America in terms of due to stadium move and all that kind of thing. So maybe keep your ear to the ground for the week on what people are saying about the fact it's being used at football and not soccer stadiums. Did you like that? That sounded American, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, there you go.
So, but I'll be interested to hear if the after game week 2 or match day 2, after them games also, if it's another round of half-empty stadiums, will the media start picking up? Will the big football podcasts in America start picking up, saying, well, why aren't we at MLS grounds? Why aren't we doing... Because all of this builds traction, and it might change the plan for the World Cup next year. You don't know. I mean, we do. It's FIFA, but you never know.
Yeah. I think what also is interesting to me is the Gold Cup's going on at the same time, and even that has been kind of flat. Actually, funny enough, the Club World Cup is getting more up. Sans the U.S. national team finally snapping its ridiculous losing streak, is finally getting a little... That got some airtime, but generally speaking, for the most part, the Gold Cup's not getting very much airtime at all. But the Club World Cup's getting some traction. So I think, do you
know what? The US has always been really dumb with this, because the MLS continues, doesn't it, when there's international games as well? And it's like, what are they doing? There's so many times over the years where, like, Inter Miami, last year, the year before, Inter Miami had a couple of games and half the squad was on international duty, and you're like, what is going on? Like, do they not understand?
I don't remember when it kicks in, but they actually recently just voted to align the MLS calendar with the international breaks.
Okay, that's good to hear.
It's there's going to be some issues with it, because there's obviously places where MLS plays that if you shift the season to be a winter season is going to be problematic for playing outdoors. Boston, I mean, even Kansas City, Chicago, New York, like it's the same thing you got. I mean, so it may. What I'm not 100% sure, because they've been light on the details, is whether it's going to look like almost like a Scandinavian season.
Well, I mean, for us, pre-season starts in January, but you'll come back pre-season. Your pitch then gets covered in snow for a few months. The season starts in April, runs until the middle of June. Then from the start of June until the middle of July, you're then on a summer break, which is to align. One, it's to align with World Cup years and other things, but it's also designed for the fact that Norway basically shuts down for the summer. So it's like, right, F1 just has a break in the summer. But then from the second week in July, we play until the middle of November. And that's where I'm not sure, like you said, is the places in America the middle of November you can't be playing, but I guess there's places in the top of Norway you definitely can't be playing in November, and they do it somehow.
Yeah, I mean, well, like the MLS calendar nominally runs like March to MLS Cup is usually like first week of December.
Yeah, so why?
But the playoffs are running in October and November in team stadiums, so they're running in cold places. I mean, assuming a cold team.
So why couldn't they? Let me ask you a random question about the MLS. Is the MLS Cup to you that important? What's more important, that or the Supporters' Shield?
Honestly, for me, from a fan perspective, I think the Supporter Shield is a more
It's a league table,
valuable.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the best team in the league table, but I think it also it's the most consistent. I mean, the playoff thing.
It's
There's a
just
lot of feelings
American,
about this
isn't it?
one.
It's American. That's basically what
Yeah,
this playoff thing
it's
is.
yeah, it's meant to try and broaden the appeal. It becomes a bit of a crapshoot. Um, to me, at the end of the day, like even from a practical perspective, it doesn't matter because winning the Supporter Shield or winning MLS Cup gets you into the CONCACAF Champions League.
Yeah. Just all
So
I'm thinking is, if you took out
it's a
June,
better trophy.
if you took out June and half of July in terms of giving the World Cup years and all of that, there's a gap in the calendar.
Yeah.
But then you just take away the playoffs at the end and you have a Western and an Eastern champion, and then you have the Supporter Shield as well. And he's an idea. Then they all have a bit more time to play in the US Open again. Well, don't get you started. But no, I think we'll end it there, Colin. I think we've had a bit of a Club World Cup catch up, so I'll speak to you again on Sunday, and we'll see how things have gone for the rest of the week.
Sounds excellent.
Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again.